shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. This is, of course, the podcast where we talk about all of the big breaking movie news items that have come out throughout the week. We'll also talk about some movie trailers. We got some trailers that came out this week that are very good. We'll talk about those. And, of course, usually this will be the part where I say movies that are out in theaters this weekend. Now the movie theaters are opening up. There are movies that are coming out in theaters this weekend, so we'll talk about those just very briefly, ever so briefly, at the end of the podcast as well. We have quite a few news to get to this week. Also, I would like to point out that I am recording this on Thursday, because the podcast will hopefully be going out Friday morning, maybe even Thursday night, because I won't be able to record any last minute stuff that comes out on Friday because I will be spending the day with family because it is another birthday this weekend for the family. So any big movie news items that come out Friday morning or early Friday afternoon, anything like that, there will be I'll put those up on the Twitter page. And, of course, we'll obviously talk about them next week on the podcast as well. Speaking of the podcast next week we will have a podcast at the beginning of the week, most likely on Tuesday. Just want to put that out there, most likely on Tuesday, where I will go into my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, because I will be watching that. So I'll make it will be his own podcast on Tuesday. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But that's next week. So this week, let's get to the movie news items. We do have 3 movie news items that came out after the podcast came out last week. The first one is the Static Shock movie, produced by Michael B. Jordan and directed by Reginald Hudlin, has found its writer in Randy McKinnon, who recently did work on the Disney Plus film Safety, which was also directed by Hudlin. The character, whose real name is Virgil Hawkins, is a teenager who became the hero Static Shock with the ability to control electromagnetic fields after being infected by radioactive substances, because, that's how most superheroes get their powers. The character got a very popular animated series in the early 2000s, along with a very popular run in the comics from Milestone Comics, which is making a comeback. Static Shock doesn't have a release date or production date just yet, but with the director and writer in tow, we can only assume that it's going to come out sooner rather than later. I remember watching the show. I really don't remember that much about it. Obviously it's on HBO Max if you want to go watch it anytime you want, which I will probably do because I remember watching it, I remember liking it, but I don't remember anything about it. And maybe I just wasn't paying that much close attention to the show when it was out. And that was not my bad, but I will obviously be fixing that once I get to watch the show. So there you go. Moving on to the next movie news item. The retooling of Paranormal Activity got some updates last week. For one, we finally have a cast. And like the franchise usually does, the names are relatively unknown. The cast includes Emily Bader, who hasn't really been in anything too big, Roland Buckley III from NBC's Chicago Med, Dan Leppard, and Henry Aries Brown, all of them, again, relatively unknown. 2, the retooling is currently filming at the moment, which I don't think anyone knew about until this report came out. And if you remember, the movie will be written by Christopher Landon, who wrote Paranormal Activity 2 through 5, and 5 being the marked ones. He also directed the marked ones, and of course he also directed Happy Death Day 1 and 2 and Freaky, all 3 of those which he also wrote as well, and will be directed by William Eubank, who directed the Kirsten Stewart movie Underwater that came out early last year. The third piece of news of this, which is arguably the most important, is the retooling has, when it was first announced, it was announced that it was going to come out on March 4th, 2022. However, that is no longer the case because it will now, or it has now, been removed from the released schedule. Now, the movie was going to come out on Paramount Plus, but for whatever reason last week, I should say, they took it off the release schedule. No reason as to why. They just happened to pull it off the release schedule. Maybe they needed more time. Maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't know why they removed it. There's no word yet on why they removed it. Again, these movies tend to be filmed rather quickly, of course, rather cheaply, or modestly anyway, not cheaply. But I don't know. That's very interesting. They took it off the release schedule, even though it was scheduled to come out next year. I don't know. Who knows? And finally, the last movie news item that came out last week, a new Transformers movie is in the works over at Paramount with a new director and writer in tow. Newcomer Angel Manuel Soto, the director of Netflix's Charm City Kings and the recently announced Blue Beetle movie, will be directing the movie, with Marco Ramirez, who served as a writer on Netflix's Daredevil. He was a showrunner and creator of the Netflix series Defenders. He also wrote on Sons of Anarchy. He will be writing the script for the movie. The Hollywood Reporter notes that the Untitled movie is expected to be a standalone movie that will be developed outside of the main Transformers universe, which will continue with another movie, which will updated this week. I'll get to that in the Quickfire movie news segment. The movie is still in the very early stages, so don't expect any news anytime soon, unless Paramount decides to push it to the moon, which, you know, considering Transformers is one of the biggest franchises for the studio, that could very well be the case. Okay, so that was movie news items that came out last week. Let us move on to trailer talk. There was a lot of trailers that dropped this week. There's 5 big ones that came out. We're just 2 of them that I will just link down below for you guys to go check out. The Mitchells versus the Machines. This was a movie that was originally over at Sony Pictures Animation, but apparently they were like, you know what? Netflix, you can go ahead and have it. So it will come out on Netflix, so you can go check the trailer out for that. It was originally called something else, and for whatever reason, I can't remember what the name is now. But it was originally called something else, but now it's called The Mitchells versus the Machines. There was also a trailer for Zola, which is based off the viral 2015 Twitter thread by Azia King about her wild trip with a friend in Florida. Zola looks pretty much like that. It is a very interesting trailer, I will say that. So I would recommend you go watch it. Probably not at work. just saying, probably not at work. But yeah, you can go ahead and check that out if you want. But the 3 trailers we're going to talk about, we're going to highlight anyway here on the podcast, is the first one is The Night House, directed by David Buckner, who directed Southbound and Netflix's The Ritual. He's also the director of the Hellraiser reboot that's in the works. Rebecca Hall plays Beth, who is a recent widow and is left alone in a lakeside home her late husband has built for her. She tries her best to keep it together, but disturbing visions of a presence in her house start to haunt her. Against the advice of her friends, she begins digging into her husband's belongings, yearning for answers. What she finds are secrets both strange and disturbing. And that is what the trailer is. Strange and eerily disturbing. It does look like we get some supernatural aspects to the movie, kind of like with a mirror world. Almost. It looks, there's a part of the trailer where I guess there's another lake house and everything's backwards. I don't know. It's very, obviously the trailer gives you just enough to make you question stuff and make you, intrigued. But the trailer is very effective. It's very good. I like Rebecca Hall. She seems to be the only real big name of the movie, because I think I didn't look up who else was in the cast, but it seems like she's really the only big name, or at least recognizable name that people will, see and probably, get people in the seats to go buy it, or to go see it. But yeah, The Night House opens on July 16th. We'll obviously keep a lookout on that, because that looks very interesting. The second trailer we're going to highlight here is Spiral from the book Saw. Working in the shadow of his father, an esteemed police veteran played by Samuel L. Jackson, brash detective Ezekiel Banks, played by Chris Rock, and his rookie partner Max Manhella take charge of a grisly investigation into murders that are eerily reminiscent of the city's gruesome past. Unwittingly entrapped in a deepening mystery, Zeke finds himself at the center of the killer's morbid game. Of course, this movie is part of the Saw franchise, although it is kind of like a spin-off of the Saw franchise, because Jigsaw's not actually in it, maybe he is. Who knows? The trailer kind of, the trailer does make it seem like this is after the events of the Saw movie, because they say that Jigsaw's dead. So it's an interesting aspect to what's kind of, it's an interesting, I guess aspect wasn't the word I was looking for. It was an interesting angle that they're taking with the movie, because it's not connected necessarily to the Saw movies, but it is. And obviously we have Chris Rock in there. Rock is actually an executive producer on the movie and actually helped create the story for the movie. I think he's getting a story by credit, which is very cool. It does feel like its own thing. The movie does, in the trailer anyway, does feel like it's its own thing. Obviously with the trademark Saw stuff going on, looks like there is traps. At one point the trailer makes it seem like Samuel L. Jackson is in a trap. Who knows if it's a flashback or if it's something current. We do know that the Saw franchise likes to play around with time. So we don't know what's going on there. Chris Rock does look like a very brash as the synopsis put it, detective. He's yelling at everybody and trying to get everybody to, believe that this is maybe a Jigsaw copycat. Maybe, obviously we don't know who it is. We don't know what's going on. There's that voice, not the Jigsaw voice, but a distorted voice that we hear. It almost sounds like a female distorted voice. So that should be very interesting to see how they play that out. But yeah, I've admitted that I am not the biggest fan of these Saw movies after like 3. I think I really liked the first 2, and 3 was kind of like, okay, this is where they ended, and then they just kept going and going and going and going. So I don't know. But I think this feels different from the trailer, and it looks different in a lot of ways. So I'm slightly optimistic for this movie. I probably will end up watching anyway, but yeah, this is going to be interesting, intriguing, I should say, to see how it plays out. That's really what's intriguing me more about the movie, is how is it going to play out from the rest of the Saw movies. So the movie is directed by Darren Lynn Bossman, who actually directed Saw 2 through 4, and will be written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger, who actually directed the last Saw movie that we saw in theaters, which was Jigsaw. So there you go. Spiral, the Book of Saw, opens on May 14th. So you can keep an eye out on that. And the final trailer we're going to highlight here is a movie directed by Guy Ritchie, and is a movie based on the 2004 French action thriller. This remake is a revenge-driven remake that follows a mysterious man played by Jason Statham, who goes to work for an armored truck company that is responsible for moving hundreds of millions of dollars around Los Angeles each week. Obviously, from the revenge-driven label, you can assume that this is very different. This trailer gives just a tiny bit too much away from what's going on. It looks like maybe the crew that he's working with, or that H is now working with, may be responsible for something that has happened to H in his past. I won't give it away in case you don't want to watch the trailer, or in case you want to watch the trailer on your own time. But it does look like maybe they gave just a tiny smidge too much away. Who knows? But it's a trailer. It's meant to deceive. So there is that. I do like the revenge aspect of the movie, though. It does hit hard when you know kind of what's going on. But the movie looks really good, man. I'm all for this. Anytime Guy Ritchie, Guy Ritchie's made mistakes, but he's also, I enjoy a lot of his work. And Jason Statham, if it wasn't for Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham wouldn't have been in the movie business. So we have that to look forward to. The movie co-stars Josh Hartnett, Scott Eastwood, Holt McKinley, Jeffrey Donovan, Laz Alonso, Raul Castillo, and Post Malone, who is in the trailer, but doesn't look like he may be in the movie that long, at least from the trailer. At least how it's edited, it doesn't look like Post Malone's going to be in the movie that long. But he's in the cast credits, so there is that. Wrath of Man opens on May 7th. I am overly excited for this one, so I'm very pumped for that. So apparently there was I don't know why I'm laughing. Apparently there was a new trailer to The Suicide Squad, which is a Green Band trailer that came out. Apparently it came out exclusively in theaters. It's probably connected to Godzilla vs. Kong if you go watch it in theaters. But James Gunn dropped it on his Twitter account. I just watched it, and it looks really good. It still looks good. It still looks good to me. There's a lot of brand new footage, like a ton of brand new footage in this movie, in this trailer, I should say. Obviously, there's no, swearing or, there's not the money shot of, King Shark ripping someone in half, but, it's a lot of new footage. It's kind of a new dynamic. You see a lot of, Ratcatcher, using her abilities. There's just a lot of brand new stuff in there, and it's very different from the Red Band trailer. It looks, this also looks jam-packed action-wise, so I highly recommend you go watch it. I will leave a link down below as well. I just wanted to put that in the podcast because I just wanted to get it out there, but this looks really cool. It still looks really great to me. I don't know how I feel. I think I kind of like this one a little better. I don't know what it is. It just has a different feel to it, but maybe because it's brand new. I got it, obviously we all like the brand new shiny thing that, you put something, in front of us, we're going to like that more. But it's a very different trailer. Obviously it's being a Green Van trailer, but it's very good. So, if you haven't watched it yet and you want to watch it, I'll link it down below so you guys can watch it. So I just wanted to put it out there in the podcast because I just saw that it came out. So really, really cool. Those were your trailers. Again, all the trailers will be linked down below in the description/show notes area if you want to go check all those trailers out. Let us move forward with the quickfire movie news items of the week. So the first quickfire movie news item of the week is the long-gesturing Black Adam movie is finally going into production and once again has another new release date. The release date for Black Adam is July 29th, 2022, so next year. The announcement was made as it took over Times Square and showed off the release date on all of the billboards across, again, New York Times Square, which seemed really cool. That was a really cool way to announce it. Dwayne Johnson will play the title character of Black Adam, which is a villain to Shazam and sometimes an anti-hero in the comics. In the movie, he will face off against the Justice Society of America, which is filled out by Adam Smasher, played by Noah Centineo, Cyclone, played by newcomer Quintessa Swinton, Aldous Hodge as Hawkman, and Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, who joined the cast last week. The movie will also co-star Sarah Shari and Manari Kanzari. It will be directed by Jaime Colette Serra, who is directing Dwayne Johnson again because he directed Dwayne Johnson in the Jungle Cruise live-action movie. Black Adam, again, will open on July 29th, 2022. Up next on the quickfire movie news item, I wasn't originally going to talk about this, but I feel like I have to now because I mentioned it before. Armie Hammer has been dropped from another movie in the wake of his now growing list of sexual assault allegations that have come out against him. Hammer was dropped from the Cold War thriller $1 Billion Spy, which he would have co-starred with Mads Mikkelsen. This is the last remaining movie that Hammer was involved in that hasn't already wrapped production prior to the allegations, like Death on the Nile, which is the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, which will come out later this year, or will come out next year, I should say. Meaning that Hammer has been dropped by every studio and business that he had ties to. The only thing that he's a part of is a potential sequel to Call Me By Your Name, which has not been given the green light. So, so right now, despite everyone involved wanting a sequel, it may, if that does ever happen, it probably won't involve Hammer, especially if these accusations against him turn out to be true in the court of law, which of course he would be probably going to prison for his accusations. So there is that. All right, that's all I want to talk about Hammer because Armie Hammer. All right, moving on. Russell Crowe has reportedly joined Marvel's Thor: Love and Thunder. Deadline reports that Crowe has joined in an unknown role, but they say that it will be a cameo similar to Matt Damon's cameo in Thor Ragnarok, which ironically, Damon will return to Thor Love and Thunder in an unknown role, maybe playing the actor character again? Who knows? The movie is currently in production with Taika Waititi back behind the camera to direct. Of course, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson will return as Thor and Valkyrie, with some of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters appearing, like Chris Pratt's Peter Quill, Karen Gillan's Nebula, and Sean Gunn's Craiglin. Making their returns to the franchise are Jamie Alexander as Lady Sif and Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, who will become Lady Thor or Mighty Thor, depending on what mantle you want her to take or whatever mantle they end up giving her. Also, Christian Bale will be playing the villain of the movie, Gore the God Butcher. Thor Love and Thunder opens on February 11th, 2022. That's pretty cool. If you follow Chris Hemsworth on Instagram, he did take a picture with Russell Crowe, which could have just meant him taking a picture with Russell Crowe, but apparently that led into something, and now he's in the movie. So, there you go. I talked about earlier that we're going to be doing a little update on Transformers. Here it is. Anthony Ramos from Hamilton and the upcoming In the Heights movie is being eyed for the lead in the next Transformers movie. Although plot details are still currently under wraps, word is that Ramos is in negotiations to play a flawed and vulnerable hero who has made mistakes in his life and is eager to redeem himself with the help of Optimus Prime. Creed 2 director, like I mentioned, Creed 2 director Stephen Caple Jr. is at the helm, with the script being written by Joby Harold, who was the writer of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and the upcoming Netflix film Army of the Dead, which is the next Zack Snyder movie. And he's also doing a lot of writing on the Disney Plus series Obi-Wan Kenobi. So there you go. Steven Yeun is in talks to join Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya in Jordan Peele's new horror movie, I should say, over at Universal. While Kaluuya is actually still in talks, or he remains in negotiations, let's say, for the other male lead, Yuen is, I guess, fully on board with the movie. Plot details remain under wraps for the movie, though it is rumored that Kaluuya and Palmer would be playing siblings, although there's no confirmation on that. That's just speculation at this point. No word yet on who Yuen will play, or, again, what the movie is about overall. But you got Jordan Peele, you have Keke Palmer, you got maybe Daniel Kaluuya. That's more than enough, really. to get me on board for the movie. So the movie does have a release date of July 22nd of next year. So obviously production will begin pretty much relatively soon if they want to make that release date on time, unless something goes wrong. But there you go. There is that. The next quickfire movie news item is that Neil Blomkamp, the director of District 9, his next film, a horror movie titled Demonic, has a distributor and a release date. Demonic will now come out through IFC Midnight and will come out on August 20th of this year. The movie does have a synopsis, and it reads like this. Quote, a young woman unleashes terrifying demons when supernatural forces at the root of a decades-old rift between mother and daughter are ruthlessly revealed. Demonic will star Carly Pope, who had a small role in Blomkamp's Elysium. She's also in the TV series Suits, Arrow, and the Tomorrow People, and 24. So she kind of bounces around a lot. Chris William Martin from the show The Vampire Diaries, and Michael Rogers, who has also appeared on multiple TV series as well, mostly as a bad guy. Blomkamp filmed the movie during the summer in Canada, and obviously, again, it will not be getting a release date. Blomkamp does have one more movie on his docket called Inferno with Taylor Kitsch, where he plays a cop trying to solve a murder only to discover that there's an alien monster behind it. That movie was supposed to start filming this year, but of course, because of COVID, or last year, but of course, because of COVID, it didn't happen. So who knows if it's going to start filming this year or not. And of course, he's also working on the script, he being Blomkamp, working on the script for the sequel to District 9, which he announced earlier this year. Very busy man, Neil Blomkamp, which I'm very happy for. Let's stick to horror, because Netflix has nabbed a new horror movie titled Every House is Haunted, which is very frightening. That will be produced by Sam Raimi. It is being written by Jason Pagan and Andrew Deutschman, who wrote Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, which was the last one, which was god-awful, so hopefully they learn from their mistakes. And it will be directed by Corin Hardy, who directed The Nun, the Conjuring spin-off movie. The movie follows an insurance investigator as he tries to disprove a couple's death was caused by a haunted house. His investigation leads him to witness strange events with his own eyes. So that sounds fairly creepy. So I'm looking forward to that. This is pretty, I don't know if this will be bummer news for a lot of people. I always found this move to be rather odd, but but I still want to mention it. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Warner Brothers is no longer moving forward with The Trench, which is the spin-off of Aquaman, and The New Gods. So this is what they said, quote, as part of our DC slate, some legacy development titles, including The New Gods and The Trench, will not be moving forward. We think our partners Ava DuVernay, who was actually going to direct The New Gods, James Wan, who was producer on The Trench movie, for their time and collaboration during this process, and look forward to our continued partnership with them and other DC stories. The projects will remain in their skillful hands if they move forward in the future. So they're canceling them now, but maybe somewhere down the line, if they did want to bring them back, it looks like DuVernay and James Wan will stick around. Of course, James Wan is directing Aquaman 2, but he was on board to produce the Trench movie, which was going to be, if you remember Aquaman, there was the part of the Trench where it was like just full on monsters. So apparently they were going to do a spin-off movie on that. But unfortunately, that is no longer the case, because they've backed down from that. The Hollywood Reporter adds that sources say the upcoming Aquaman sequel was considered enough, but Warner's could come back down the line if they want to go down that road once again. So there you go. The last we heard about the Trench movie was that Noah Garden and Aidan Fitzgerald were going to write the script, and it was described as a monster horror movie in the DC universe. So again, that's no longer happening. The New Gods also no longer happening. Ava DuVernay was very excited about that project. Everyone was very excited for the project because it was Ava DuVernay doing her first big studio, or not her first big studio, because her first big studio movie was A Wrinkle in Time. But this was going to be her first foray into comic books. And the New Gods themselves was going to be interesting because obviously it follows the New Gods. The New Gods itself is very complicated. If you're not a comic book fan, even for myself, who discovered the New Gods because of that movie news item, is no longer happening. So we don't have to learn anything about them anymore. But yeah, this is pretty much a bummer because, obviously, again, DuVernay was very excited to do that. Obviously, DuVernay is sticking around with the comics world because she's going to go off and do a CW show called Naomi, which is also based off comics, the DC comics at that. So she's still completed with that, but there you go. Unfortunately, no longer in the works for those two movies. Obviously, Warner Brothers is making some moves with how they're going to handle the future of the DC movies. Obviously, people are very vocal after the Snyder Cut came out, but that's not going to stop them because they said they're not going to restore the Snyderverse. But we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, they have a bunch of stuff lined up. We already talked about it. Black Adam. Of course, they got Blue Beetle in the works. They got a Batgirl in the works over at HBO Max. They got Satana. They got the Shazam sequel. They got the Batman coming out, which is not part of the formal, quote unquote, formal movies. And of course, they got the Flash that they're finally gonna get into it. And of course, the Superman movie that is going to be produced by J.J. Abrams' company. So there's also that too. That's no one's forgotten about that. Don't think anyone's forgotten about that. But yeah, unfortunately, these projects no longer in the works. Finally, not the last bit of quickfire. We have two more quickfire movie news items. One of those is that Aaron Sorkin's Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz biopic Being the Ricardos has rounded out its core cast as production has started this week. The movie already had Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem portraying Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, while J.K. Simmons and Nina Arianda will play their I Love Lucy co-stars William Farley and Vivian Vance. The cast has been rounded out by Tony Hale, which of course from Veep and Arrested Development, Ali Shawkat from the TV series Search Party. She was also on Arrested Development. She was also in a very good movie called Final Girls, which if you have not watched that, I highly recommend you do. And Jake Lacy from multiple TV series like The Office, Girls, High Fidelity, and Rampage. Hale will play the show's executive producer and head writer Jesse Oppenheimer. Shawkat and Lacy will play the show's longtime writing partners Madeline Pugh, and Bob Carroll Jr. Other supporting roles have been filled out as well. So one of them being Clark Gregg from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the early Phase 1 Marvel movies. Agent Coulson, in case you needed a reminder. The movie is set during a production week on the show I Love Lucy, where Lucy and Desi are faced with a crisis that could end their careers and another that could ruin their marriage. Ball and Arnaz's children are executive producing the movie and have given it their seal of approval. So there will be no, random news item that says, this isn't what our family represented, because they're part of it. And they've been working, and they have been part of it, because Aaron Sorkin has been writing this for years. He's been working on this for years. At one point, he had Kate Blanchett set to play Lucille Ball, and now he has Nicole Kidman. So there you go. And finally, the last quickfire movie news item is Randall Park, the internet darling himself, is set to make his feature film directorial debut, which is really cool. The movie will be an adaptation of Adrian Tolmie's acclaimed graphic novel Shortcomings. The graphic novel is described as a comedic drama that follows a trio of young Bay Area urbanites, Ben Tanaka, Miko Hayashi, and Alice Kim, as they navigate a range of interpersonal relationships traversing the country in search for their ideal connection. In cages, bars, and bedrooms, their stories collide and intertwine with naked candor and razor-sharp humor. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Sorry, guys. Toman will write the script for the movie, which is pretty cool. He will also be an executive producer. The graphic novel is also considered an iconic work of contemporary Asian American fiction that examines racial politics, sexual mores, and pulp culture. Obviously, again, Randall Park will be directing the movie. His first time directing. Obviously, he's been on a show, Fresh Off the Boat, which itself was, based off a real event of a real family and off Eddie Huang's real life, his family coming over to living in the States and growing up in the, in the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. This is really cool that he's going to be stepping behind the camera. And then this, I haven't heard of Shortcomings, but apparently it's supposed to be very good. I saw some reviews online about the graphic novel, and they were all very, very good. So I am looking forward to this, and it should be interesting, especially now with everything going on. I think this is rather timely that more Asian American stories are being told. So this is really cool. All right. So those are all your quickfire movie news items. Let us move on to the big movie news items of the week. All right, so the first big movie news item of the week we're talking about is, even though the pandemic is still going on and people are getting vaccinated, movie theaters are starting to open up, and many studios are chomping at the bit to get their movies out. However, because of that, studios are also still trying to figure out when those movies can be released. And this week, some studios once again have moved some movies. First, in some really bummer news, at least for me and every nerd out there, the Mortal Kombat movie has been delayed a week. It will now come out on April 23rd. According to Deadline, Warner Bros. Decided to delay the release of the movie a week because of the early success of Godzilla vs. Kong overseas, which could lead to a potential huge success over here in the States, again, since movie theaters are opening up. So they just moved it back a week to give Godzilla vs. Kong at least a little bit, another week of, potential box office gains. The next one is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. That is also moved a week. It will not come out on September 24th. It was originally supposed to come out in June, but they moved it to September 17th because they wanted to move it away from Fast and the Furious 9, or F9 as it's called. But now it's been delayed another week to September 24th. So there you go. Just a longer wait for Venom, Let There Be Carnage. The next one is Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, which recently said that it was going to come out on September 3rd. It has now been pushed back to November 24th. So it is now a Thanksgiving movie for, the whole family to watch. No reason why they moved that big, but it's now going to just come out on November 24th. The sequel to The Hitman's Bodyguard, titled The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, has moved its release date up instead of down. After getting delayed because of the pandemic last year, it was going to come out on August 16th. It will now come out on June 16th. The sequel will see bodyguard Michael Bryce, played by, once again, Ryan Reynolds, and hitman Darius Kincaid, once again played by Samuel L. Jackson, stuck in another dangerous mission, this time with Darius's con artist wife, Sonia, played by Selma Hayek. As Bryce tries to protect the couple, the trio find themselves in the crosshairs of a powerful maniac, played by Antonio Banderas. The movie will co-star Richard E. Grant, Tom Hooper, Gabriel Wright, Frank Grillo, and apparently Morgan Freeman in an undisclosed role. Who knows what that is? Patrick Hughes, who directed the first movie, and he also directed The Expendables 3, will return to direct, which, again, will come out on June 16th. Those are your release date changes. Again, just bummer news on Mortal Kombat, because I was really looking forward to that. But it's still coming out. It's still coming out this month, or next month, I should say. This month. It's April already. So, yeah, let's just hope that, let's just hope. Let's just hope there's not another big delay. Hopefully it's just another week. So there you go. All right. Again, movie theaters are starting to open up and studios are just trying to figure out, what the best course of action is. I'm assuming we're probably going to get a lot of more of these delays. Nothing big, just like another week or so. Movies getting pushed back a week or two, maybe even a month. I don't expect anything massive like getting delayed another year. Unless, another outbreak happens. God forbid that happens. Please don't let that happen, knock on wood. But let's just hope that doesn't happen again. So, all right, moving on to the next movie news item. The animation studio Laika will be making its first live-action movie, which is pretty cool. The company celebrated its 15th year anniversary last July, and it's the studio behind movies like Coraline, Paranormal, The Box Trolls, and my personal favorite, Kubo and the Two Strings. The live-action movie will be an adaptation of John Brownlow's upcoming first novel, 17. There's actually no specific plot details at the moment, but it is categorized as an action thriller, which should be very interesting for the Laika Productions to take over. Obviously, it's still in the very early stages of development, as there's not even a writer attached yet, so it will probably be a while before we hear about the project again, but Laika stepping out of their comfort zone of stop-motion animated movies and going live action is pretty damn cool, and it's also very, very exciting, especially considering the possibilities of who they can bring in. Obviously, it's a very well-respected studio, and we'll see what happens. Of course, Travis Knight, who is the head of Laika, he directed Kubo and the Two Strings. He's also branched out and directed a live-action movie. He went and directed Bumblebee. I believe he's in talks to direct something else. I forgot to look that up, but that's pretty cool that they want to branch out and do other stuff. I think that's really exciting, and again, I think that could lead to a lot of great potential opportunities for stuff like that. So very, very cool for Laika. I'm very excited to see what they bring to that. All right, moving on. A remake of the Russian sci-fi horror film Sputnik is in development from Matt Reeves' production banner 6th and Idaho, along with Village Roadside and XYZ Films. The original film was set in the 1980s to be more specific, Soviet Union during the Cold War, and follows a young doctor summoned to a secluded research facility to assess a cosmonaut. The astronaut in question, following a space accident, has returned to Earth with a male violent organism living inside him. one of the original stars of the movie. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. But he likes the idea of a movie getting a remake, saying this. Quote, Sputnik was the first big Russian release to go straight to digital platforms during the lockdown. Everyone was staying at home and an unprecedented amount of people watched it. The release created a lot of buzz in both Russia and globally. I'm very proud of Sputnik now is a rare Russian film to get an English language remake. And that is true. We don't get a lot of, America doesn't really remake a lot of Russian movies. So the fact that they are going out of their way to remake not just a Russian movie, but also remaking a horror Russian movie, which isn't even that old. Again, it came out last year when the lockdown happened. I remember seeing a lot of the horror movie websites, the horror movie news websites, saying a lot of good things about Sputnik. Supposedly it's very good. It's supposed to be very, very frightening. So I have it on my queue. I just haven't watched it yet. So I'm very much looking forward to watching it. And now that it's getting a remake, it should be interesting to see kind of how they go about it. Whether they go a full blown remake, whether they go, whether they decide to do it, their own. Do they keep it a period piece? Do they make it a modern day piece with the same idea? We'll see. But I've heard a lot of great things about Sputnik, and the fact that everyone involved from the original movie is actually on board with doing this sounds pretty cool. And that star whose quote I read from, he's apparently also a producer on the original movie. So if everyone over there is happy about it, I think that's pretty cool. So if you've seen Sputnik, please let me know how it is. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. All right, moving on to the next movie news item. In a major deal this week that is roughly valued at $450 million, which is amazing, Netflix has acquired the rights to Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3, both of which will be written and directed once again by Rian Johnson. Also returning for both movies is Daniel Craig as Detective Benoit Blanc. The move is probably a bit of a surprise to everybody. I know it's a surprise to me and a lot of other people, but Knives Out is actually owned by Rian Johnson and his producing partner Ram Bergman, who made a single picture deal with MRC Media Rights Company, which distributed the movie through Lionsgate. So them also being producers on the movie, they were free to shop the sequel, or sequels I should say, anywhere they wanted to. And reportedly they held a discreet auction that came down to Apple, Amazon, and Netflix, which obviously Netflix ended up winning. Johnson has also apparently finished writing both scripts, and Knives Out 2 will begin shooting in June over in Greece. So they're moving full steam ahead with Knives Out. First Knives Out, I really enjoyed the first Knives Out. I know there's a lot of people out there who really, really love the movie, and there's a lot of people out there who like the movie. There's a lot of people out there who didn't like the movie, probably just because it has the name Rian Johnson in it, and because, he directed the quote-unquote worst Star Wars movie ever. They just didn't want to go watch it because it had his name on it. But I really liked Knives Out. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great ensemble cast. I thought the movie felt kind of like an old school whodunit movie. So I was looking forward to it. I know that he was very excited about the potential of sequels. It did very well for itself at the box office from what I can remember. So I know if I'm Lionsgate, I'm probably kicking myself over and over again for letting something like that go. But the fact that it's going to Netflix, and it's going to go straight to Netflix, that a lot of that has to do with paying Daniel Craig and probably paying whoever else needs to come in that they, because these movies obviously are going to be ensemble movies. There's no way that these movies, especially from going from the first one to these sequels, and you're not having an ensemble, I don't think that's going to happen. I think these movies are going to be ensemble movies. And I think, some of Rian Johnson's regulars are probably going to come over for the movie. Obviously Daniel Craig coming back is a really big deal. I know there was word that supposedly one of the sequels is going to be like a prequel or something like that. So I think it's going to be interesting and very intriguing to see how Netflix and how Johnson handles this. We don't know anything about the sequels. Not really. We do know obviously that it's not going to be the same family. It's going to be a brand new cast surrounded by Daniel Craig. So this is a really big deal. This is pretty cool. Obviously shocking a lot of people, shocking me, one of them. So this is pretty cool. This is huge for Netflix, huge for Rian Johnson, and huge for that again, potential franchise in Knives Out. So there you go. And the last movie news item of the week, at least at the time of this recording, is Adam Wingard, the director of Godzilla vs. Kong, which some of you maybe have seen, and some of you are waiting to watch in the weekend, has been hired to direct Warner Brothers' take on Thundercats. Wingard is currently working on the script with longtime writing collaborator Simon Barrett. They did You're Next, The Guest, and The Blair Witch together. This is also apparently a passion project for Wingard as well. While doing press for Godzilla vs. Kong, Wingard admitted that in college he wrote a 272-page screenplay for a Thundercats movie. The opportunity came to Wingard because he heard there was a script already floating around Hollywood that was going to be produced by his Death Note producers, which of course, and Wingard directed Netflix's adaptation of Death Note. So when he asked the producers if he and Barrett could rewrite the script, they adamantly said yes, and we are here now. This will probably make some fans happy because Wingard had to say this, quote, "I want to do a Thundercats film that takes you back to the 80s aesthetic. I don't want to reinvent the way they look. I want them to look like Thundercats. I don't want to do it live action either. I don't want it to look like cats. This is funny. This is the funny part of his quote. I don't want those kind of issues. No disrespect to the director, to whom I don't mean to throw under the bus any more than everyone else. I want to do a movie we've never seen before, a hybrid CGI film that has a hyper-real look and somehow bridges the gap between cartoon and CGI. That's the starting point." That's pretty cool that he wants to do that. I mean, besides the, throwing cats under the bus, that's pretty cool that he wants to he doesn't want to change the look of Thundercats. And he wants, because obviously everyone's going to try to reinvent the look of Thundercats and everything like that. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants them to look like Thundercats. He wants them to look like the Thundercats from the TV series, which is really cool. But he also wants to create a live action. He doesn't want to, do it all live action. He doesn't also want to do it animated. He wants this weird combination between cartoon, CGI, and live action, which I think is really cool. And if he can do that, kudos to him for that. Now, for those who don't know about Thundercats, because I've been shouting that a lot, the cartoon followed an elite group of cat-like humanoid aliens known as Thundercats, who were in charge of saving the dying planet of Dundria, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Mumra and his men. So there you go. So if you're keeping track at home, Wingard, of course, has Godzilla vs. Kong coming out. He's working on, now, the Thundercats movie. He's also working on a sequel to Face Off, which was announced earlier this year. And he's also he was working, I should say. I don't know if he still is, but it's on the back burner. But he was working on a remake of I Saw the Devil, which, again, he was working on before he started working on Godzilla vs. Kong. So, Wingard is a very busy man. I am a huge fan of Adam Wingard. I love You're Next. I love The Guest. I know Blair Witch, execution-wise, not very good. I like the idea of what they were trying to accomplish, but the execution of it was pretty bad. Godzilla vs. Kong looks awesome. I still have not seen it because we're running out of theater for me and the family, and we're going to go on Saturday. So I have to avoid the internet like a plague, or certain sections of the internet like a plague, which I've so far so good. So there is that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think Adam Wingard he's a nerd. Everything that they've been saying about Godzilla vs. Kong is very positive so far, from what I've seen, or from what I'm allowed myself to see, has been very good. So I can't imagine, having, two iconic characters like that, having pretty much so far good word of mouth. I can't imagine, giving him the keys to Thundercats and not expecting it to be good, considering what he's done for Godzilla vs. Kong, which is a movie a lot of people have been wanting to watch for a long time. So I'm looking forward to this. I really am. I think if anyone can bring Thundercats to the big screen, again, after hearing all the good, positive things so far that, again, I've allowed myself to see about Godzilla vs. Kong, let it be Adam Wingard. Why not? He's a nerd. Apparently, he's a very big nerd for Thundercats. He's a very big fan, so let him do it. And more power to him if he can, nail it, and more power to him if he can do that on top of his already busy workload. So I'm down for that. That's it. That is all the movie news items, at least at the time of this recording. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, this will be pretty much the cutoff of the podcast because, like I mentioned, I won't be able to record any last minute movie news items that come out on Friday, which is usually what I usually do. So that's pretty much the cutoff of what's going to go on. So obviously, if anything big drops, we'll talk about it next week on the podcast, but we'll also talk about it over on the Twitter page. If you want to go follow the Twitter page, the link to that is down below in the description / show notes area. I did mention that I was going to briefly talk about the movies coming out this week. Obviously, Godzilla vs. Kong, so far, positive word of mouth. So there is that. Another movie coming out this week is The Unholy, which we talked about the trailer a couple weeks ago. That is starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan, where he plays a disgraced journalist who is put on assignment of this young woman who people believe has the ability to talk to the Virgin Mary. Of course, it's a horror movie, so it may actually not be the Virgin Mary that she's talking to, and she's actually possessed by something. Who knows? Trailers look pretty creepy, so if you have the opportunity to go watch that, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, those are the two big not horror movies. Well, I guess Godzilla vs. Kong could be a horror movie if you want it to be, if you look at it a certain way. But those are your two movies coming out this week, Godzilla vs. Kong and The Unholy. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast this week. I very much appreciate it, guys. Obviously, go check out all the links down below. Again, we'll have the links to all the trailers that came out this week, the ones we talked about and the ones we didn't. There is a fake trailer for, I'll put this up on the Twitter page. I won't put it down below. But there's a fake trailer for, obviously it's April Fool's Day. So there's a fake trailer that Blumhouse did that was supposed to be about the Chupacabras movie, which I kind of want to watch now because it looked pretty good, even though they used footage from other movies. But I still kind of want to watch it now. But you can go check that out. Go find that out if you want. It's on the Blumhouse Twitter page if you want to go check that out as well. And my Twitter page as well. But yeah, anything you need is down below in the description / show notes area. Very much appreciate it. If you go check all those out, thank you very much for listening to the podcast, wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, very much appreciate it. Go follow, rate, subscribe, comment, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening to. Leave a review. Very much appreciate it, especially if you leave a review. Very, very much appreciate that. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I am done. Hopefully all of you have a very safe, happy weekend. Have a very safe and happy Easter, because obviously Easter is this Sunday. So hopefully all of you have a good one. Hopefully all of you are, hopefully you can spend it with your families if you can, if you safely, obviously, and all that good stuff. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I very much appreciate it. Once again, have a good weekend. Be safe. Be kind to people, especially be kind to people. Don't be a dick. There's no reason to be a dick. If you are, don't be surprised that people are dicks to you. And that's it. Thank you guys. Have a good weekend. And as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!